Hi, everyone. Today we are going to be talking about developing your research proposal outline. So the purpose of this assignment is for you to get some feedback in preparation for your final research proposal paper. So the proposal outline is worth 4 points, and the final research proposal due at the end of the term and your video presentation is worth 20. So this is for you to start thinking about it, get some feedback from me before you start working on your final paper. So for the proposal outline, you may use the template. This is the template that you can use for your final paper. And this is what it looks like. It has all of the required components. And so this is available in iCollege. You can make a copy, putting your name and information. Now, as far as the proposal outline, I highlighted the sections that you will need to do for your proposal outline. So your research issue, your research questions, the method, and then your 3 references. So that is optional. If you would like to use the template for your proposal outline, you may. And just if you decide to do that, just leave the other sections blank. Now, the component for your proposal outline, you are going to include your research issue. Describe it in 1 to 2 sentences what the research issue is. Some people call this the research problem. You'll also do your research question. We'll talk about that. Your purpose, research purpose, the research design that you propose to use, whether you are proposing quantitative, qualitative, or mixed methods, and then your scholarly sources. Now, remember, the research proposal paper is just a proposal. You don't need to conduct the research or carry it out this semester. So don't worry about whether or not you would be able to carry it out and if it's feasible for you to do this term, because it is practicing drafting a coherent and well-designed proposal. So keep that in mind. Here is the rubric in iCollege. You can access it there of how I am going to be assessing the proposal outline, your research topic. So this will be your research issue and your purpose, your questions, your design, and your scholarly references. So you can see how you will be evaluated there. So in terms of identifying a research issue, choose something that is of interest to you and has research significance. And research significance, you can think about all of the different people or groups that this research could potentially benefit in terms of increased knowledge, increased exposure. So think about what problems might exist in an area that interests you, why does it matter, and if there's any gaps in practice or the research. So here's just a few examples. These were inspired by some examples that you have shared already. For instance, the impact of extracurricular activities on academic performance, teachers' attitudes towards inclusive education, or the role of peer mentorship in college retention rates. So think about your topic, and I know that you've already been thinking a lot about it. Now, in terms of aligning your topic with a research purpose, you can go back to chapter 4. In chapter 4, there's a heading in the text called Statement of Research Purpose. And so here are a few common research purposes. This is not exhaustive, there's more, but sometimes the purpose is to describe. Maybe it's to describe a relationship in quantitative research, or maybe it's to describe a phenomenon or a process or an experience in a qualitative sense. Another purpose would be to predict. So if your purpose is to predict, you're interested in understanding the relationship between your variables. So what is the relationship between X and Y? Maybe you are interested in causation and you want to identify if there's a causal relationship. This would be aligned with a quantitative design. Or maybe the purpose is to explain or understand. And so that could be aligned with some different ones. So think of some different verbs and purposes for your research. Understand, explore, center. So if you have a great idea for a verb, share that in the chat too. So in terms of writing your research question, this is important because it determines your research design and it should be aligned with your design. So similarly to the section in chapter 4 that is about writing a statement of purpose, there's also a section about writing your research question. So look there, that section of the text has tables, it has scripts, starters, and it has examples for quantitative, qualitative, and mixed methods. So just a few pages, but do use that as a reference. So just at a high level, your research question could be descriptive in a quantitative sense. It could be relational in a quantitative sense to understand if there is a predictive relationship between the variables, or causal. It could be exploratory. That could be a purpose that we could add here, to explore. Exploratory, an experience or a process, mixed methods, combining those. So thinking about those are important when you're phrasing your question. Now, a good research question needs to be clear and concise, specific. And when I say specific, I mean it will indicate the setting and the participants. We'll look at some examples. It needs to be a question that is addressed through observation or empirical. We talked about that. And open-ended, not yes or no. Some of the scripts and descriptive have yes or no, but I think that they can be modified and be improved. So here's an example of going from a subjective to a stronger objective question. Instead of what is the best university, what university characteristics lead to the highest student retention? So as you can see, this is much more clear and specific, and we are focused on the variables we're interested in, like retention. So here are some examples, and I'm going to talk through these and talk about some of the different components that make a good research question. So one thing that good research questions do is they include the specific participants and context. So I have that underlined here in all the quantitative, qualitative, and mixed methods. So middle school students, female high school students, middle school students. That's repetitive, but it could be all types of different settings or participants. Now, in your quantitative question, you have the variables. So it's important in your quantitative research question that you include the variables, and in your qualitative, you include the phenomenon that you are considering, and mixed methods will have both. So I put in italics what the variables are, the phenomenon. Now, the text that I have in red is for the verb that is helping you, well, not the verb, but what you are signified for the purpose. Like, what is the relationship between here? How do students perceive? What is the impact of? So those are important to consider the particular purpose of your research and whether or not it is aligned with the design. So for a quantitative example, what is the relationship between participation in an extracurricular activity and the academic performance of middle school students? So you can see the variables, the specific participants, and it is phrased trying to understand the relationship. The qualitative is open-ended. It's focused on a process or experiences. How do female high school students perceive their experiences in a STEM classroom? And then mixed methods can include both. What is the impact of project-based learning on middle school student science achievement, and how do students perceive their engagement and motivation? So when you are outlining a research proposal, you can start with your topic, which is your big idea, usually stated in a few words or a sentence or two. Then your purpose, which is your application, what you hope to do with it. And then from there, you can build on to your specific research question. So a topic might be elementary literacy during COVID-19. The purpose to describe the impact of learning on children's literacy acquisition. So you can see the variables in the relationship, and you can see the question, how does virtual learning during COVID-19 impact third graders' literacy acquisition as measured by the MAP assessment? So empirical question that can be answered through observation, like how, why, what, which. Okay, and when you are selecting a research design, we have learned about quantitative, qualitative, and mixed methods research designs. So in the second half of the course, we are going to be going into detail about these designs, but in chapter 2, we had an introduction to these designs. So based on your research purpose and question, in your outline, you should say which design you are going to propose. So are you proposing quantitative, qualitative, or mixed methods? And why? That's your justification. So your justification can be short. So if you are proposing correlational quantitative research, your justification could be you want to measure the relationship between two variables. If you are proposing qualitative, you could be specific, phenomenological qualitative to explore lived experiences, or mixed methods, combine statistical analyses with interviews. So I have a few examples here of some proposal outlines that you can take a look at to see what I'm looking for. So here you can see we have the research issue stated here, the research question, the purpose, and then the design and the justification. Correlational design will analyze simulations and use frequency and student test scores. And then the 3 scholarly sources. These are not in APA format, but yours will be. Here is qualitative. You can see the issue, the question, statement of purpose, the design to capture lived experiences, and then their references. And then in mixed methods, you can see they have the research question incorporates both the quantitative and the qualitative, and they have their justification for mixed methods, and then their 3 references. Now, speaking of those references, like I said, these were not in APA style, so you need to make sure to do that. But finding scholarly sources. So as a refresher, you can go back to Perusal 2 to review how to use the Georgia State databases. Of course, go to library.gsu.edu. I should have put that website here. But you should log in with your Georgia State credentials, and then you could use one of the databases like ERIC to search for keywords. So think about your variables or the phenomenon, think about synonyms, and search for those to find relevant articles. Now, when you're looking for articles, you need to have 3 to 5 articles, peer-reviewed sources. Choose articles, not books or dissertations, just due to time. You don't want to be reading entire books or dissertations, so pick shorter articles that you're able to read. Now, for your outline, you don't have to write a literature review yet. You will in your final paper, but for your outline, you just need to include the references in APA style. But the good news is if you're using the database, you're able to format APA style correctly. And those references need to be relevant to your research question. Now, also attached in iCollege to the assignment is this library research guide. So this is a page on the Georgia State Library for methods of research and education in EPRS 7900, and it has some different tutorials and articles for you on how to find relevant research articles. So you got this. Start drafting your outlines. I'm looking forward to seeing them and giving you feedback. So feel free to leave any questions or comments here. Check out the library support if you need it. And keep in mind, the purpose of the outline is to get feedback so you can have a very strong and well thought out final research proposal at the end of the semester.